we are. Okay, we're back. Donno, we back?
We're back.
You hear me now?
I hear you.
Okay, there we go. What just happened there? All right. Welcome to 305, guys. I'm parked by the side of the road. Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at 5 Reasons Sports. We got Alex Donno. You can find him at Alex Donno. We're sponsored here today. I should have told you the sponsor in advance, I guess.
Ooh.
We're sponsored
we'll figure it out.
by Prize. We're just going to spin the wheel. We're sponsored here today by Prize Picks. Use the code 5. Put down $5. You get $50 to play right away. Legal in the state of Florida, as well as many other states. We got plenty of people playing right now, but again, that deal still operational there. They also still have the Tyreek Hill Square. It's up there right now, half up receiving yard on Thursday, and he gets 1 receiving yard and he cashes. So check it out, prizepicks.com. Again, you put down $5, you get $50 to play. There's no catch. As long as you just play the initial $5, you're in there, and plenty of promos and other things at prizepicks.com. So download it from the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store, or again, go to prizepicks.com, use the code 5. All right, we're going to talk Dolphins today. I'm actually on my way to the Heat game. The Heat tonight play Milwaukee, one of these ridiculous. By the way, Donno, does the in-season tournament mean anything to you?
No, it feels like a money grab to me, honestly. And it's like,
yeah,
I think part of the problem with the in-season tournament is it's hard for me to embrace something when I've been watching, NBA basketball for decades, and they just try to throw something in new like this. Because I understand there's a little bit of hypocrisy, because for anyone who's a soccer fan, they all have in-season tournaments, right? Like the MLS has in-season tournaments. If you're a fan of the European leagues, they've got in-season domestic tournaments, but they've been doing it for so many years, you kind of just accept it as reality. Whereas the NBA just randomly starts doing it. In 2023, I guess was when they started. It just feels like, okay, they're just trying to throw more games out there to squeeze out more ticket money, more TV money, more merchandise money, and also make bodies even more tired for players that are probably overworked. A lot of them for 80, the ones who actually play 82 games to begin with. So no, the in-season tournament means less than nothing to me.
Yeah, I don't think it matters that the Lakers won it last year. I don't think anybody cares. They still would lose to Denver in 4 games in the playoffs. That's how things always play out for them. So I don't really get it. I know they want us to be enthused about it, the custom courts and all that kind of stuff. Do you really think Jimmy wants to spend those days in Vegas? Feels to me like he'd rather just spend them in the south of France, right? Like I don't really know what I don't really know what the motivation is for any of these. I mean, there's this financial motivation, but for some of them, it's pretty minimal. So I don't get it. But anyway, we're going to talk Dolphins here today. We'll talk Heat. Well, we may not talk Heat because Thursday's Thanksgiving, so we might both take the day off. But we're gonna talk. Yeah, we're gonna talk Dolphins here today. And just a pretty simple question. They've done what they had to do, Donno. They were 2-6, and they've put themselves in position to essentially, go up and lose a road game against Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, or Kansas City, just like we said. They put themselves in position to challenge for the 7th seed, essentially. And they're playing a Green Bay team that's coming off a big win against an, undermanned San Francisco team. Let's be fair about that. Is this real to you? Like the Dolphins winning 3 straight, Tua playing the way he's playing, them kind of getting away from the Waddle Hill, being so heavy on the Waddle Hill emphasis of all of this, playing a little bit of a different way, involving the tight end. Chop Robinson has shown up lately, so they're getting some pass rush. Do you believe in this?
I think they dug themselves into too big of a hole. I do. And I think that's the problem because, it's fair to say not only the last 3 weeks, but even the last 4 weeks, because they played very well against Buffalo in that road loss, and Tua played very well in that game. They have been playing playoff caliber football for the past month, but unfortunately, it's hard to dig yourselves out of 2-6. Now, I allow myself a little bit of hope, Ethan, because the AFC is not really, outside of a couple teams at the top, it's not scaring anybody. Like the Dolphins are right there. They're the 8th seed right now, and the top 7 get into the playoffs. Now, it's going to be difficult to get into that top 7 because unfortunately Denver, who you're looking up at, they also keep winning. And they're just a game in front of the Dolphins in the loss column, but they're a couple games ahead in the win column. So it's not like your margin for error has shrank to absolute zero. And I think that, these comments that we're getting kind of back that up. It's like the Dolphins, they can't afford to lose maybe more than one more game the rest of the way. Like Mike in West Palm Beach says, win Thursday, I'm buying. I think we all would be. We'll talk more about that game. Beat Green Bay and it gets full belief, right? But I think that's part of the problem is like the Dolphins can't afford to lose maybe more than a game, two at the very most if you get some help down the stretch, and that's the problem. But I believe to an extent, because technically they're still in it. Tua has thrown 11 touchdowns and 1 interception over the past 3 games, so he's playing his best football again. Like he's starting to look like the Tua of last season again. So I think this team is giving themselves a chance. I just worry if they were too far behind the 8 ball. Oh, you're muted.
He's actually playing better football than last year in the sense of how this would translate later in the year, because he's been accurate as hell, but it's been a lot of short stuff. They started to work the middle of the field with Waddle and Hill last week, and they started to get some things going there. And then obviously Jonnu Smith has been really a revelation this year, and he's already got more catches and yards than any tight end did for the Dolphins last year. Not that they had the greatest set of them, but he's done exactly what they got him to do. And it just does feel more sustainable, even if they haven't run the ball well every week. It feels more sustainable because they're having longer drives. They're not turning the ball over as much. They're not taking quite as many chances. And with that said, the biggest problem is what you mentioned, which is Denver keeps winning. I don't know if they're that good, and they have a rookie quarterback, but their schedule is soft. And there really is not a game on the schedule. They play the Colts, which feels like kind of close to an elimination game for those two teams. But other than that, you look at Denver's schedule, they don't really play anybody. They play Kansas City in the last week of the season, and I don't know if the Chiefs are going to need it. They're not going to need it to win the division, most likely. We saw the Chargers lose this week, so Chiefs seem fairly safe in their position. And they will see if they need it to kind of get home field. But it feels like Buffalo has the inside track for that now, particularly because they have the game against Kansas City already. So we'll see how that plays out. And you're also talking about Pittsburgh and Baltimore, whichever team wins that division. So there could be some competition for them to try to get the 1 seed or try to keep the 2 seed or something along those lines. And so they may need the game, but they might not. And if they don't, then you're talking about a Denver walkover game in that last game of the season. This is why really the Dolphins can't afford to lose. Like, what Hill and Tua were talking about, like we need to win out. They're kind of right. Like I had them at 11-6 before the year. I don't think that's happening now. But I thought 9-8 would get them in, but I don't think so. Because I don't see the Pittsburgh, Baltimore, whichever team doesn't win that division. I don't see that team having fewer than 10. And it looks like Denver is slated for 10 right now. So you might be right. This might be too little too late. It feels a little like the Heat's 16-17 season, where they rallied back from 11-30, only to miss out by 1 game. They finished 41-41. They missed by 1 game because Deion Waiters got hurt in the last week of the season. We might be looking at something like that again, unfortunately.
It may save everybody's jobs. And it's like, see, look, second half of the season, we were so good that we keep the whole front office intact. We're fine. Maybe they create that mirage as well.
That would not be something that's good. I will say this, Alex. I think McDaniel has shown something here. Because this thing could have fallen apart. He did not have a great first 8 weeks of the season. He is in charge of, Greer picks the players, but McDaniel has a lot of influence. McDaniel was comfortable with Skylar Thompson as his backup quarterback, and that was an egregious mistake. So he made mistakes in the first 8 weeks. They were very undisciplined. That was a huge problem. They've been more disciplined lately. They've come back playing a different style. They're not committing a ton of turnovers or penalties. They're not doing stupid things. And they also have not fractured in the locker room when they could have at 2-6. So I think no matter what, I always thought he deserved another year, but I think no matter what now, he's back.
Yeah.
I still think some of the stuff with Greer, it's just such a mixed bag. It's like, I would still replace him, by the way. But then you're also saying, okay, well, Chop Robertson, people thought it was a bit of a reach. He's looking like he's a player now. But then again, Cam Smith from last year's second-round pick is really giving you nothing. It's like there's one thing to look at was positive. There's another thing to look at that's not. I just think he ultimately, if they end up missing the playoffs by a game, okay, or by a tiebreaker, it came down to him not getting a backup quarterback, that's fireable. It's fireable. Like I don't know how, and I guess the best case scenario is what, again, that they get the 7 seed, and then okay, so if they let's say they get a 7 seed and they're competitive in, pick your cold weather city, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. They're competitive, but they've lost to all 4 of those teams in recent playoffs, by the way. Those are the 4 most recent teams I think they've played in the playoffs, actually. They lose one of those. They'll lose to any of those teams, I think. Maybe Pittsburgh, they'd have a chance. I don't think they have a chance against Baltimore, Buffalo, or Kansas City. They lose that game as a 7 against 2. And then what? Greer comes back?
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, I know that I'm a big proponent of when you get a new GM, you allow him to bring in his own people, but I think there can be a compromise. I think if you get a new GM, maybe you bring him in with the understanding that we'd like to try and make it work with Mike McDaniel. And, you know, let's give it I think it's reasonable to say, hey, like, we have a head coach we really like. We think our personnel department was more of the problem. Let's try to make this work. And if it, you know, give it a year, like kind of like a probationary period. And I think Mike would probably be okay in a situation like that, because to me, McDaniel he's such a reasonable guy and a collaborator. Like, I think he would, because there would be some coaches that are like, well, screw you. If you're going to bring in a new GM who may fire me in a year, like, you know, like a guy like Brian Flores could have probably turned that into a toxic situation. But I think McDaniel might be able to work okay kind of in that situation. And if things do go well next year, then, you know, then the GM keeps you around. If things don't go well, he looks for his own guy. Like, I don't know. I know that a lot of the situations the Dolphins have been in have been because of half measures. But I think sometimes when you're in an extraordinary circumstance like this, where the head coach is having some success, maybe you try to make it work. So I'm reasonably open to that idea. I'll say it that way.
Yeah, you and I are in the exact same place here, because I've always hated the half measures, but I think that may be necessary this time. I'll say this for Mike. He's smart enough, I think, to realize there are only 32 of these jobs. And I'm not saying he'll never get another head coaching job, because I do think he would. But I don't think it would happen right away. I think more likely he would be brought on as like an offensive assistant. He might get an offensive coordinator job, but he probably would go back to the kind of role he had with San Francisco, where he was like run game coordinator and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that's a pretty big drop from being a head coach. So I think he would be fine working for another GM if that's what it turned out to be. You know, again, Greer hired him and has given him a lot of the players he wanted, but also I do think there's just more of a track record with Greer of them not getting it done. And I don't, you know, if Mike is going to be in the playoffs for a 3rd straight year, even if they lose in the same spot for a 3rd straight year, I think he returns. I just don't think you can trust Greer to fix certain areas he hasn't fixed before. And we've talked about that a lot. All right, we'll talk about what they need to do here to beat Green Bay on Thursday. First, I want to tell you about a great sponsor. This is sponsor roulette here. We're going to go with You Break Wheel Fix, Alex. You use the U in there, youbreakwheelfix.com, or youbreakwheelfix on Instagram, based in North Miami. If your wheels are damaged by these roads of South Florida, you just want to spruce them up, get the powder coating, the great colors, all that kind of stuff, you can do it at youbreakwheelfix.com. Again, it's 305-748-0112. That's 305-748-0112. As Alex scrolls through, you can see the great work that they do there. You can see all of this on their website or on Instagram. So mention us to Mark or his team down there. Mention 5 reasons and 5 guys, 305 guys, 5 on the floor, whatever. It's 3 yards per carry, 6 rings, cane, whatever you want to mention. And you will get, just mention 5. 5 reasons is the easiest thing. And you get 5.5% off your next order. So check it out, youbreakwheelfix.com. All right, so this game, Green Bay's playing differently. They're running the ball a lot.
Yeah, they sure are.
It's going to be cold. It's really the first cold weather game of the season for the Dolphins. It's not going to be. Have you checked it? It's supposed to be in the 30s, I guess.
Yeah, take a look. I pulled it up shortly before We
Okay.
started talking. You see Thursday high of third. We're not going to be in the high because it's an 8:20 p.m. game. So
Yeah,
you're
so
looking
we're gonna
more at
be
that.
around
Yeah,
25. Yeah, about 25
right.
degrees at
You're
that
looking more
time.
at that low of 19, closer to that. Yeah, that's
Right.
not Tua weather.
No, it ain't. It's not KC weather. Well, a lot of narratives about this, and they want to bust the narrative and all that. I think the cold weather thing with Tua is overstated. I'll just say that. I don't think I think it's going against better teams on the road is more the issue than the cold weather.
Yeah.
I now can't look Kansas City last year, Alex. That was untenable. Like that was just unique, extraordinary, disgusting conditions. Okay, like people died going to that game. Okay, literally died. Okay, they never should have played it in the first place. So I mean, I'm not gonna judge Tua on that. And then a year before, of course, he wasn't the quarterback in Buffalo when they lost to Skyler. Skyler was the quarterback in the playoff game. So a lot of this cold weather stuff, I think, is overstated for them. I mean, they went up to New York when the Jets weren't that bad last year, and they won pretty comfortably at the Meadowlands, even with Jalen Phillips blowing out the Achilles. I don't think that's the issue. I think they can travel up there better than they have before. I do worry about them stopping the run a little bit. I mean, Sealer and Campbell have been great, but they are going to need to. They're going to need to load up on it in this game. They haven't really let a lot of running backs get off, so that's a good thing. But yeah, I just think to me this comes down to Tua efficiently running this thing, and I think he can. I think this is a winnable game. Honestly, I don't. This is. Green Bay's good. They've got a lot of young talent at some of the skill spots. Receiver, they've got some decent young players there. But I don't see. I don't know. I don't see this as a game that they can't win. I think they can win even in those conditions.
Yeah, and they're only 3.5-point underdogs, which tells you there's in the eyes of the bettors and the handicappers, there's not a whole lot that separates these teams. Stopping Josh Jacobs, who's arguably the best or one of the best running backs you're going to face all year, has had a big amount of success. Is going to be difficult. Their Green Bay's quarterback, Love, has been up and down this year. He has thrown a lot of interceptions. I think to me, it's like this is a winnable game, Ethan. The Dolphins come into this one with some momentum. Of course, Green Bay does as well. But I think it would be great for a lot of the narratives if the Dolphins can pull it off. Not only do you keep yourself in the playoff hunt, or it's again you feel like you're already in the playoffs with the fact that every game. I've said the same thing about the Dolphins and the Hurricanes in recent weeks. It's like you've been in must-win territory. You got to keep winning football games, and yeah, if you can go up there around 20-25 degrees. And get this win. And to go back to what you were saying about the cold weather stuff, I joke about it not being Tua weather, like your quarterback is Hawaiian, but at the same time, it's not just been a Tua problem. Right. I think it's been more of an offensive philosophy problem that, with the entire playbook, the offensive philosophy is designed for 75 to 95 degrees. Actually, closer to 95 is probably better because you're used to playing in humidity. A lot of the teams you face are not. So it's really the philosophy thing. Because my thought, Ethan, when the Dolphins were getting kind of stymied in that inhospitable weather in Kansas City last year, like I wasn't sitting there cursing at Tua Tagovailoa. I was cursing about the fact that they just didn't have a plan B because, those were not passing conditions. And it's not like Patrick Mahomes was lighting it up in that weather. But from the offensive line on down, Kansas City is built to play in that weather. The Miami Dolphins are not. So it's, if they can get this win in a frigid Green Bay in the frozen tundra, it's going to tell you a lot, not just about Tua, but it's going to tell you about the versatility of that entire football team. Because from top to bottom, they haven't looked like they're built to win in bad weather.
No, they haven't been built to win in bad weather forever. I go all the way back to Gary Stevens, who was the offensive coordinator in the late 90s. You're going to go up to Buffalo and try to win with Bernie Parmalee? Former UPS driver. They have not been built. Honestly, the last time that they were built to win in those conditions was like 2002, where they had Ricky Williams. And Ricky was the funniest thing about that, and then we'll close it here, but this is great Ricky stuff. He was in Buffalo, and it was a total blizzard. For those who don't remember, he didn't want to play. Rob Conrad told me they had to push him out on the field. He did not want to go out there. And he ended up running for like 2:22 or something.
But the Dolphins still lost.
Yes, they did. And not only that, they lost in New England in the last game of the season that year, also frigid conditions, because North Turner stopped giving it to Ricky and threw 3 times for Chris Chambers, matched up with Terrell Buckley. I'll never forget it. At the end of that game, they completely collapsed and missed the playoffs. But that's 22 years ago. That the Jay Ajayi team, they ran the ball physically, but they've not typically had the most physical lines. They've not typically had the most physical running game. But they've tried to construct a style that is better suited. So we will see. I'll tell you what I was cursing last year, Donno. It wasn't necessarily they're not having a plan B. It was, what the hell was the plan at the end of the game against the Titans? Because if they hadn't screwed that up so bad, they wouldn't have been in Kansas City in the first place. But again, this is where we're hoping for a best case scenario, which again is a 7 seed and then a 31-14 loss against Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, or Buffalo. So Dolphin fans, you have that to look forward to. All right, I have a Heat game to look forward to tonight. We'll see if they can get over 500 against Milwaukee in this stupid in-season tournament. Alex, we appreciate you. Use the code 5 at PrizePicks. Better Edge, if you go there, you can use the code 5RSN. You can get $20 to play. And, of course, our friends over at Ubreak will fix. Have a good one.